and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to MRI Software's transformation, moving to Jira Service Management successfully.
Thank you, Deniz and Anant. And for everyone, you'll see that everything that both Anant or from Atlassian Point and Deniz from Adaptavist is going to really resonate in the journey that MRI went through to really make sure like we migrated successfully from ServiceNow to JSM. So let me start by putting just the challenges in place with seem like they're basically the same that we already covered. So you'll see that it's exactly what happens. So the first one, high cost, high maintenance, right? In this age and era like where we really need to be careful where we spend as an enterprise the money where we expect for a certain return, right? Like the ROI. Currently, when we were in service now, we were not receiving the ROI we were expecting. It was expensive with high maintenance fees, with the true ups that kind of like just key here out of the blue. So we needed to take a look at something that it was more manageable, able to forecast, and just have expectations to communicate to leadership. At the same time, we already had so much fragmentation. So this was critical for us to think about how we were going to do this migration, this transformation. Some key capabilities that everyone will expect as CMDB were not there, right? Like we're not delivering at the level we needed for empowering our teams to be more efficient, more productive. And last but not least, the lack of data visibility. Since we had teams, in this case, like our major organization in IT, working through ServiceNow, where we have a lot of our, or all of our product and engineering teams working from Atlassian. So we have this level of lack of data visibility. So that helped us to let the requirements, right? Like what we needed to do. This was not just a tool replacement or shifting from a tool to another tool, right? Like this required transforming how we operated. Take a look of how we do things internally, what we need to change, and start to enable all the different pain points that we had. So the next goal was like, well, let's simplify, right? Like it's always the name of the game. I think when you're starting to take a look at scalability, is to keep it simple, keep the core ITSM process where we were able to leverage ITIL best practices, make sure like establish a scalability led by platform first foundation, and then as we cover with Deniz, enable automation AI, right? Like this, the teams are looking for that every day at every task that they're working on. We need to empower them with like the tools that they need.
Thank you, Cisco. We heard you, and this is why we proposed a tailored transformation project to MRI. When we look at migrations versus transformations as terms, both means moving to another tool or platform. But in this context, migration presents more of a lift and shift approach of moving your old and messy data into a new tool. And transformation presents a clean slate approach where workflows are reimagined to drive modern speed and agility. When it comes to ServiceNow to JSM, we favor transformation over migration. And the reason for that is because while both tools answer the same requirement, being a service management platform, they approach problem solving in a different angle and drives different working cultures. For this reason, transformation means that it's not one-to-one. There is no one-to-one feature parity between tools. Often service management tools have their own ways of working that needs adapting. And it's also a chance to start fresh. We often see migration approaches take very long due to the intention of designing the same system, but on a different platform. Every migration is actually a chance to optimize and start clean. And of course, organizations can't transform without people in mind. We see a lot of transformations fail because technology change without behavioral change fails. The core of our solution is always, therefore, organizational change management. With these in mind, we will now move on to our phase project delivery. So the first phase of the transformation is on onboarding for us. We know change starts with people. So with MRI, we decided first to run lightweight decision sprints and people-focused workshops. This helped us understand who the stakeholders, their expectations, requirements, and priorities were. Therefore, we ensured a shared understanding and collaboration from the start. This part of the process is vital in building the relationship with our customers and all stakeholders involved. Cisco, now, can you give us some insights on how this onboarding and stakeholder alignment worked for you?
Yeah, thank you. So even before we start with onboarding, there's always going to be a lot of work in the background. So I will always recommend to anyone that is taking a look to this, there's a lot that Adaptavist supports you before you even start thinking about the onboarding. There's all the understanding what this will be, how they can help you. That all happens in the background, and it's always helpful to have a partner like Adaptavist guide you before you start reaching into the two-phase approach that MRI took. Everyone could have their own approach. This is how we led it. First, it was really just getting up. Now that you have your understanding, now that you work with Adaptavist and have the real picture of what the transformation could look like, is bring it to your key stakeholders. In our case, was our CTO, our VP of IT, and a selected group of IT directors, right? Like trying to let them know, if we're going to explore this transformation, what will that encompass? What are the things that we need to look at? And of course, drive and define that goal, right? Like we need to make sure where we are going is aligned, everyone understands it, and everyone will make sure like that's the message that we share. In this case, our core objective that we came with our leadership was standard scalable foundation for IT teams to work through Jira Service Management. Once that you have that, we were able to just kind of like move into those steering groups where we have smaller pockets of IT key stakeholders, that those are regional, functional, include subject matter experts, and make sure like you share that goal, you share that objective that you're gonna lead. It's not just about sitting down with them and tell them we're gonna do it, give me your requirements, and let's just focus on that. It's around enabling, right? Focus on the people, let them know what you're doing, why you're doing, and along the way, learn as much as you can from them in terms of shaping the road that you're gonna be starting and facing along the journey of the transformation.
Thank you, Cisco. And then with our project, we moved on to our second phase. From what we have learned from onboarding, we carefully designed workshops in the form of decision sprints to gather requirements and best practices for a modernized setup. We now knew who we should be speaking with and the direction of the transformation. Therefore, we were able to map their requirements for the implementation and migration, enable their chosen champions and super users in a more focused training cycle, and leverage our UAT and UX teams to support the design of MRI solution. This was particularly important because we mapped functional requirements and people experience against actual stakeholder expectations. This phase provided crucial input to design our implementation. Now, Cisco, do you feel like we were able to effectively run this phase and capture all design requirements?
Yes, Deniz, and I will really thank the Adaptavist team here. You guys were able to really help us with the experience and expertise that your team brought to MRI when we were focusing on how are we just gonna face this journey, right? Like what are the things that we need to focus? So we at MRI, we had to take a different angle and a look on how the transformation was gonna be done. And with the guidance and coaching of Adaptavist, we were able to really focus on how do we want to validate our user experience for the agents. And for context for everyone, MRI Software is a highly acquisitive organization. So we have brought up over the last decades several ways of working. So this was really a culmination of we need to realign some of those practices at our IT organization on how we're going to run things. So a UAT, a design focus on those work streams, how we need to work globally, how an enterprise of over 5,000 users internally has to run. It was at the core focus of designing the process, designing the transformation, right? Like it was not just about migrating the practices and building everything and then just focus on build and then validate. It was a constant interaction, a constant focus of design with Adaptavist in guiding us to what are the best practices. How do you use at the top of the potential JSM versus what you had before? What are the new things that will enable your agents? That was a key foundation for us to start moving forward in the next phases. Is just challenge the assumptions that MRI had, where Adaptavist was a great partner at putting us always at the edge of like, how are we doing things and what is the best way to do it moving forward?
Thank you. And next we have the third phase where the magic happens. We implemented the solution with value first approach and validated it with UATs designed together with MRI. We met with stakeholders regularly and gathered feedback to ensure that we are on the right path along the way while we are implementing a value-focused design. During the implement and validate phase, we implemented functional and non-functional requirements, moved the data to be UAT ready, and helped MRI validate the predetermined UAT scenarios. There are always unforeseen requirements during the implementation. Of course, we always practice that we believe it is important to be adaptable and open to feedback. And this close collaboration actually enabled us to deliver a very value-focused implementation. Cisco, can you give us some insights on how this phase enabled MRI to reach their goals?
Yeah, in the implementation, MRI software had to answer the first question. And it was the most critical that helped us define how the implementation was going to go through. And it was, do we migrate the data that we have in ServiceNow or not? Which is always going to be a challenging because you understand that the data that you have in a system will capture how things were done, right? Like it could capture broken processes, broken structures, lack of data, like all those missing pieces. So for MRI, the answer was no, right? Like we don't want to migrate what we had in service. Now we're gonna still, of course, have it secure in a different warehouse for making sure like any audit, any references, we have it for internal purposes, but it's not really something that we wanted to put as the step zero in our migration to ITSM. So well, we decided we need to start with a clean foundation, right? Like allow for, in this case, Adaptavist to help us make sure like we set up the pieces, the functionality, the operating model, the system of work that is going to be for the next months, years. So that allows us to simplify our processes. Take a look to what we had, come back, challenge the teams, go back and always reference what are the best practices that Adaptavist is sharing, what are the industry standards for 2026, right? Like what is everything that the companies are sharing as this is the way that you should really run your IT service management. And that helped us in our implementation, right? Like we didn't want to lose anything, but we needed to look at the future as this transformation journey was going to begin.
And of course, we're not done yet. We have the implementation ready, but we need to enable the people, and we dedicate a phase for this as well. We prepare agents and administrators to work effectively in Atlassian, focusing not only on system differences, but also on improved workflows, AI adoption, and collaboration practices and productivity. To enable users, we did online or async trainings. We ran or helped run communication plans. We shared user-focused documentation and recordings. And these actions really helped us enable people adoption by making them more comfortable with using the Neve tool. This was the most important phase for enabling organizational change management. Cisco, do you feel that we could effectively enable your people and help them get ready for the go live?
Yes, Deniz. Again, a real shout out to the Adaptavist team that we work through the transformation, because when we move into this phase, we had to shift our mindset from implementation, right? Like just building the solution in the tool and start really paying attention, like how our agents will really gonna use it, right? Like how they're gonna interact with the tool on a day-to-day, their way of working. That is something that we needed to pay a ton of attention after we run a first kind of like set of steps in setting up the process and open that feedback loop, right? Like that implementation loop that you mentioned, where we needed to just always be mindful and an open mind to just listen to our agents. So we partnered really with our team that led from Adaptavist implementation to design a MRI, I want to say tailor approach, where we needed to focus like our teams are, as I think most of the companies this day and age, like globally set up, right? Like so asynchronous communication was critical. And Adaptavist tailored that training for us in a way that it was consumable for everyone. We were able to just come up with like, let's live in the past, kind of like the sit down and go through a classroom and everyone just gonna sit down there for an hour or 2 hours and listen how everything's done. And more in like consumable videos that walk the agents through how they're gonna perform their main role, their main activities as an agent that is focused on incidents, how you're gonna be starting to take a look through alerts, through like the incident, how you escalate, how you communicate. Those were the tiny pieces that we were able to build in tiny videos that are easier not just only to consume, to update, and at the end of the day, internally MRI worked with our education services team to build a transcript that is powered through our internal LMS, where it's easier for onboarding, transitioning from a different team to another one, right? Like, how are we going to be empowering our teams to just know what they need to know? And that was on like how to use the tool. I also will call out that the Atlassian University was that foundational piece for us, where it's just able to share all the courses that Atlassian provides in how to use JSM, especially in this case, a ton of the IT members were coming from ServiceNow, so Atlassian was new. How does Atlassian look? How does JSM work? And then you just added the Adaptavist piece to the additional layer of, now that you understand the tool, how you're going to use it. And that was critical for us to empower our people to just, here's the new solution for your day-to-day running IT.
Perfect. And thinking back on the challenges that we see for phase 5, we have benefits realization. Of course, we addressed these challenges for the long-term benefit realization. We addressed cost inefficiencies by rethinking the value while we're designing the solution. We addressed adoption fears by involving stakeholders early, planning communications, and training users effectively. We addressed regulatory and operational risks with careful functional and non-functional design. We addressed the consumerization problem with UX-focused and value-focused design. And also AI was a natural part of the Atlassian platform, completely integrated, which helped greatly with AI adoption. Cisco, now let's hear from MRI's perspective how benefits realization worked for you.
Thank you, Deniz. First of all, for everyone, we just went live last week on Wednesday. So far has been a successful launch. Of course, you're always going to have some tiny pieces of feedback here and there, but it was really successful. It was, at least 10x better than everyone expected internally. So really thank you to the Adaptavist team to make us be there at that level of success. And as you can see in the screen, there's going to be multiple values. Some of day zero, some are really more on the long term that people need to monitor and make sure like you always have that people aspect when you receive feedback, and you make sure like everyone is understanding the goal, the objectives, and drive towards those. First of all, and I think I go back to the cost, we not only had actually 50% cost reduction for what is going to be the forecast of the whole project just this year, when you still have like 2 tools working, then the next year when you're actually going to start seeing like that jump into the real evaluation, but it's also the growth. Not only got reduction in cost, but we also got growth. So those are coming handy, like you see the value in there, as well as the AI enablement we talked about. We didn't have it before in ServiceNow. JSM comes out of the box as an uncovered. Robots at the core foundation of everything that Atlassian provides. MRI already having around like 3,000 users at Atlassian. This adds perfectly. Like you start building more around the platform, giving more to robot to help you on everyday task. That JSM out of the box provides a ton of value. We don't even need to customize more robot. And then you start thinking about how this transformation is going to help us with efficiency, the productivity, team alignment. All those go hand in hand. You cannot just have one and forget about the other. You need to make sure that you have the people, the process, and the tool all working together to enable your teams to get this value in the future. So something we're really looking forward to just start thinking with the teams over the next months. How is the project really coming together after we saw some day zero success? Now it's in like the 30, 60, 90 day and future on the value.
Thank you, Cisco, and that's great. And how does MRI Software's future for service management looks like?
Yeah, first of all, we're building the next, I think the next generation of ITSM. I'm really confident about the work that we did in collaboration with Adaptavist here. But first, I want to measure like we still stabilize and measure the value in the first, kind of like the next 6 months, right? Like we don't want for this to be now that we're there, we're gonna start tweaking and tailoring, and then we forget what was the real objective. So we're really gonna have some core concept around the implementation that we should not change it too much. If not, the value is gonna get lost. And how do you measure value if everything keeps changing? Of course, that doesn't close the door to, if you see the need and there's something that is going to really help the team, let's make sure we do it, we document, and we update everything that is needed for the next kind of like, let's say, agents or an onboard that we need to take a look downstream. everything is still going to be focused role-based, right? Like no more, there's this person, this team that needs this, but at the global and enterprise level, that is not going to be changing. We sit down with the teams, we map, we focus on role-based. Everything has to be always focused on that. And what we're really looking forward now that we are in JSM is that AI-driven scenario that we didn't have before. Every day, how our agencies are going to leverage Robo and are going to leverage a CMDB that is going to be providing the data that they need at every ticket, at every change that they do, at every scoping, at every, scheduling effort that they have. Everything is going to be there for them. No more need to go to multiple reports and refresh and try to think, what am I missing from here? And I'm not happy. You just ask Robo in so many cases that we have already IT stakeholders like at the high level tell us, now this is great, right? Like I can just ask Robo, what's my day? What's my team doing? And it's no more need to scroll through multiple reports and tables to see what's happening. The second piece at MRI, we're really focusing on how we drive more adoption across the organization. Here, when I mentioned like scaling from 80 to 100, I want to call out like 1 year ago when we started this journey with Adaptavist, we were at 0. So thinking that we are right now at 80 is because all the internal noise that you create when you're making such a big project, and we had multiple departments knocking on the door and saying like, how can I get that, right? Like I'm hearing about the tool, it looks great. How can I join that transformation that IT is leading? And we were able to get us at 80. I want to make sure like it's 100. I want to make sure like Atlassian JSM for us is the one-stop shop for everything that a MRI software requires internally. That means standardizing across all our functions and making sure like it's a single platform that everyone knows. And finally, once we get to that 100%, once everyone internally is just perfectly sitting down with the JSM, how can we potentially use this for our clients through our service collection? When we started, it was just JSM. As we moved in the last year, Atlassian introduced the whole service collection concept. So now we're really starting to think, is this the next step that we could take? Like, let's start taking a look to what customer service management could be. How can we leverage that for our clients? Because everything is going to be powered to Robo through the assets that we already built. So there's no need to duplicate efforts in a different platform. We're going to be able to leverage that unified service experience across all our functions to internal, external clients.
So I would like to thank you all, Anand, Cisco, and everyone that has participated. We hope you find the session useful and insightful. And if you have any further questions, of course, we would like to continue the conversation. Please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to speak with you. Thank you very much.